I really do want to thank Gary for all the marvelous music this week, and our reader for such a great way to introduce us to this topic, yourself. We're on our 5th week of our 13-week series on living the science of mind. And as you know, each week is independent. Today we're talking about yourself. And I hope that you'll try to go through the entire series because every week has something of value in terms of our expanding our spiritual territory. Today, we're going to explore how our spiritual identity is ever expanding and how you have dominion over who you are. We'll be looking at the importance of being you, all of who you are, and the unique place that you play in this one life. So what is your dream and how might you awaken to all that you can be, realizing that there is God within you? But first, your question for the week. What's the one choice that you can make today to know that you have dominion over your thoughts and to develop who you are as you awaken to God at the center of your being? One more time. What's the one choice that you can make today to know you have dominion over your thoughts and to develop who you are as you awaken to God at the center of your being? This week, the readings were a very powerful reminder that we are divine at our core. Unfortunately, we allow our fears and our guilt, our feelings of inadequacy or lack, and even our judgment of ourselves and others to limit our spiritual identity. So I want to talk this week about some things that we can do to remember that we actually do have dominion over our spiritual identity. We have dominion over our thoughts. In his essay, You Have Dominion, here's what Holmes wrote about it. Know that you are governed by infinite intelligence. Know that you are directed by divine guidance and that you are compelled to think and act constructively. Therefore, you may know that everything you do, say, and think carries with it a divine authority. How often do you remind yourself that you are directed by divine guidance? Maybe an even better question would be, do you really believe that you're directed by divine guidance? That there is some divine guidance that compels you to think and act constructively? Last week I spoke a little bit about divine order and accepting what is. What is that you are governed by infinite intelligence. There is no such thing as something from your past having any power over you other than what you give it. Because we have free will. We have the right to choose who we become and what we think. So let go of all the anger, let go of all the lack of forgiveness, and just live in this moment. It's one thing to say that we are children of the divine, but it's an entirely different thing to truly embody that statement. Knowing that peace and love and joy and ease and grace and wisdom lie right within you is different than feeling the peace and the love and the joy and the grace and the wisdom that are in us. To feel it requires that we embody that knowledge. Here's an example. You can know the rules of tennis or of golf. It doesn't mean that you're a good tennis player or a golf player. To play the game, you actually have to put the rules into practice. You have to go out on the tennis court or on the golf course and actually practice those rules. Put those rules into action. And we have to practice if we want to be a good player. And I think the same is true of the laws of the divine. When we talk about love and law, it's just rules unless we put them into practice. In Holmes' essay, The Door That You Alone Can Open, he wrote this: "There's only a certain amount that can be taught. The rest must be learned through the doing. Every man must discover God in his own way, but always within himself." Always within himself. We have to discover our own spiritual identity in our own way. Sure, we can know the rules of spirituality. We are children of God. God is right where we are. All is in divine order. I'm directed by divine guidance. Within me is infinite intelligence. I could go on and on. The truth is that believing it doesn't mean that we're putting it into action or that we're practicing those beliefs. It doesn't mean that we're living our lives from those beliefs. In his essay on You Have Dominion, Holmes wrote about this need to put our spiritual thoughts into action and make them personal. Here's what he had to say: "Freedom already exists, but your freedom is in your own thought. Hence, it is not enough to say God is free, which of course is a true statement, but this statement must be made personal. The freedom of God is my freedom. The power of God is my power. The presence of God is in me. The mind of God is my mind. The strength of God is my strength. And the joy of God is my joy." I was talking with my friend Angela Davis the other day about this upcoming Sunday topic, and she reminded me of that famous quote of Oscar Wilde's, "Be yourself, everyone else is taken." And those really are such simple words, and yet we spend a lifetime trying to accomplish being who we are. Often I realize that I'm trying to emulate somebody else. Quite often it might be one of the ministers that I truly admire who have such motivational speaking talents, and they just seem to capture the audience when they get up on the platform. And what I know is that I am who I am. For better or for worse, I'm me. And I'm not saying that we shouldn't try to improve ourselves. Hey, I use Jesus and Buddha all the time of examples of how to be in life. But what I am saying is that it's essential that we not try to be somebody we're not, or we don't try to be somebody else. Rather, that we be who we are. That we say yes to all of who we are, our true nature, the truth of who we are on this planet. So I want to pause and challenge you for a minute. Think about something, some limiting thought that you have about yourself. Just take the first one that popped into your mind. We all have a few. Now I want you to ask yourself, is that true for God? I don't think many of us think that God is limited in too many ways. So if it isn't true for God, how can it be true for us? So how might you take the limitation off those thoughts that you have so that things are less limiting in your life? We don't have to stay in those beliefs of how we're limited. And what's true for God is true for us. There are no limitations. There's not a single limitation in any area of our lives if we are who we are. We put limitations on ourselves by trying to be who we're not. In his essay this week on Be Yourself, Holmes wrote this: "One thing is certain. Whatever our personality may be, or whatever it is to become, is wrapped up in the one idea that there is spirit in man, and God himself is incarnated in every living soul. The spirit within us is a gift of heaven, and without it, we would not be alive. It is a recognition of the spirit within us that is the true starting point for the development of personality. Think about what that's saying. The spirit within us is a gift of heaven, and recognition of the spirit is a true starting point for the development of our personality. If we embrace those words, how could we possibly see ourselves as limited in any way? Do we really believe that spirit is limited? In that same essay, Holmes went on to say this: personality is the flowering of the spirit within us, the coming forth of a secret relationship that we all hold with God. When I read those words, and believe me, I've read this book a lot of times, so I've read them several times, I realize that I've been striving to remember something so that I could have more peace and joy in my life. And that thing I'm trying to remember is that me, my personality, who I am, is coming forth of a secret relationship with God. I have a unique relationship with God because I am unique. And that's a relationship that only I can have. It's allowing God to truly live through me, as me. And how I do that is unique to me because I'm the only one on this planet right now that's had the exact same experiences that I've lived through. And what I realized was equally important: when I surrender to the divine person that's back of my personality, it takes no effort to live a life that's filled with joy and love and compassion. It's a lot easier when I just let things be. Holmes put it this way: I think we can say without limitation that the person who finds himself and God will discover at the center of his own being something which dominates without effort, something which does not have to assume a false front, something which by the very nature of its being is both human and divine. It sure seems like a good idea to me to live from that place at the very center of my being, which doesn't require effort and doesn't require me to put on a false front. That place we're living is indeed without effort. Wow. I don't know about you, but what I do know about me is that when I try to be somebody else or to behave like somebody else, and might even be somebody I admire, if I try to do it even in a small way, it takes a lot of effort because it's not comfortable for me. It's not comfortable for me to try to be somebody I'm not. So if we each awaken to the God at the center of our own being, we can move through life with a lot less effort. In How to Build Your Tomorrow Today, Holmes wrote this: but since today is the only day in which we live, and yesterday has forever passed, the change that we need to make within ourselves must be made today. And so we have to live each day as though it were complete and perfect within itself. We have to live each day as though all the joy there is in the universe were ours now. And we have to live each day as though all the joy we ever expect to experience were ours now. We create our lives and who we are by how we spend our time and the thoughts that we allow to dominate our minds. In his essay, What is a Dream?, Holmes spoke of this angel that came down to earth. And the angel got so caught up in all the negative comments of the people on earth that the angel began to believe the negativity. And then the angel began to live in fear and doubt and uncertainty. And actually, the angel walked the earth for many years that way. But there was always this little nudge within the angel that something wasn't quite right. And one day, the angel remembered that he was an angel. He remembered all the peace and the joy and the love that he had felt when he was living in the Garden of Eden before he came down to earth. And he noticed that there was this light in the distance. He followed the light, and he lost all of the negative shadows. And when he got there, he realized that he had been asleep and it was just a dream. I think at times it feels like we're in that dream state. We allow fear, doubt, uncertainty to take over our lives. And our lives are meant to be lived without doubt, without fear. How much of your life are you dreaming and allowing the monsters of fear and lack and doubt and uncertainty take over your dreams instead of being the real you? What if you made a conscious effort to allow the light of spirit to draw you into the real you, to fill you up with that peace and that love and that abundance and that hope that is who you've come here to be, the certainty of being loved? In his essay, Getting Along with People, Holmes wrote this: "If you want sunshine, step out into the sunshine. If you locked yourself away in a dark closet, why not come out into the light? If you have been feeling that everything is against you and no one really cares for you, know that God is in everyone, and meet the God in others and see what happens." I can hear some of you thinking, sure, easy for you to say. Hey, I've had those times in my life when I felt like everything was going awry and I had totally lost control of my life. It's especially in those times that I think that our philosophy is so helpful. It's in those times when I try to remember one of the foundations for me of this teaching, which I'd like to paraphrase is, if God is for me, then who can be against me? That is always my comforting thought, my light at the end of the tunnel that draws me back to that hope. The trick is remembering, awakening from my dream and seeing that light. In his essay, How to Build Your Tomorrow Today, Holmes put it this way: "We should know that all the power in the universe conspires to help us. We should feel that we live in an eternal presence of pure spirit whose whole purpose is good, whose whole desire is constructive, and whose whole feeling towards us is one of love and compassion." Listen to those words. We should feel that we live in an eternal presence of pure spirit whose whole purpose is good. I think we really can only feel that way when we're working on expanding our spiritual identity, on being aware that God is at the center of our being. In that same essay, Holmes uses an analogy of weeding a garden. He reminds us that it's necessary to pull out the weeds because they're choking the plants that we want to survive and those plants that we want to cultivate. I think the most important part of his weeding the garden analogy is this reminder. Yesterday is past, and tomorrow has not yet arrived. So the only time we can weed our garden is today. Today is the time to weed out our thoughts that aren't serving us. Today is the day to take action, to put those rules of spirituality into action. Today is the day to embrace that idea that we live in the eternal presence of pure spirit. And that pure spirit's purpose is good. And the whole desire is constructive, whose whole feeling towards us is one of love and compassion. How we react to what's happening in our world, as well as how we respond to our fellow human beings, determines the world we see. And it determines the world we live in as well. Do you want to live in a dream that's filled with fear, doubt, uncertainty, lack? Or do you want to awaken to the God that is the center of your being and live in a world that's filled with joy and hope and love and compassion and peace and abundance? I know which world I want to live in. How about you? I want to end with these words of Holmes from this week's essays. If we disconnect ourselves from the past and find ourselves firmly rooted in God today, in love and hope and joyful expectancy and in grateful acknowledgement, and if we learn to harmonize with everything that transpires today, tomorrow will blossom like a new flower in our experience. So in summary, if you want tomorrow to blossom like a new flower in your experience, decide this week to be yourself, to fully embrace all of who you are. Take dominion over your thoughts. Remember that you are directed by divine guidance, and that divine guidance compels you to think and act constructively. Put your rules of spirituality into action. Be yourself. Everyone else is taken. Remember that spirit within you is a gift of heaven. And your personality is the flowering of the spirit within you. The coming forth of the secret relationship that you have with God. Awaken to the good at the center of your being. Notice how you spend your time and what thoughts you're having. Awaken from your dreams and move to that light of the essence of who you are, this loving, beautiful being. So here's your affirmation for the week. How is it that I so easily and willingly make the choice today to know I have dominion over my thoughts and to develop who I am as I awaken to God at the center of my being? So your challenge for the week is to make a conscious choice to notice when you're allowing negativity to creep into your thoughts, to notice when you're trying to be who you're not, and to awaken yourself to the truth that when you find yourself truly rooted in God, tomorrow blossoms like a flower in your experience. So go be you, all of who you can be. Let's pray. So we just take a deep, nourishing breath. And we allow that breath to root us in the essence of who we are, in that divine guidance, in that divine experience that we're having. And we know that the love and the peace and the joy of the divine are right within us, and we embrace that. And what I know to be the truth is that the easiest way to walk on this planet is to just be who you are in every moment of every day, to just let the divine guide you and be who you are, not somebody else, but exactly who you are. And in that embracing of the God at the center of our being, what I know is that life becomes so much easier. So I am grateful. I'm grateful for everyone watching. I'm grateful for all the effort that we make to remember that we are divine beings and to embrace that God at our center. I'm grateful to know that the God without is the God within each of us. And it's from all that gratitude that I release these words into the law of mind, spirit, and action, knowing the truth. That God's already said yes, already called them done, already said, sure, be who you want to be. It's going to be so easy. So I can just say amen, and we can affirm it together. And so it is. And I want to thank everybody that's donating and helping us during this time of COVID and this time of doing online services. We're looking forward to the time when we can be back together in person. And until then, thank you for your donations.